Amy Butler. I'm Andy's little sister. But I'm just so happy to tell you about what a great guy he was, because he really was amazing. I always looked up to Andy, not just because he was 6'4", but he really was an all-around great guy. He was smart, he was funny, and he was without a doubt the wittiest person I have ever known. What I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about what it was like growing up with Andy in Springfield, Pennsylvania on 25 Locust Avenue. Springfield is a really small town outside of Philadelphia where everybody knew everybody. You knew what was going on in everybody's house. And just like we see here today, Andy had a lot of friends. And those friends would come over to our house all the time on the weekends in the summer. Now, I'm not really sure if they came to our house all the time because my mom was always cooking, baking, feeding them all. Or it was because there was this great little baseball field right behind our backyard and they all played baseball all day. The one thing I know for sure is nobody came to our house to see Andy's annoying little sister. That was me. I was annoying. But I was only annoying because I wanted to play with them. I wanted to play baseball too. So every day when they were there, I would march out, hands on hips, and say, "Mommy says you have to let me play." Which of course she hadn't, but easygoing Andy would always say, okay, you're up, I'll pitch to you. So I'd get up there, I'd hit the ball, all the guys with Rich and Andy and their friends would throw the ball around, and I'd get to home plate and they go, "You're amazing, you hit it inside the park home run." So I'd go off happy as could be. And Andy would turn to his friends with his hands up, his eyebrow, one eyebrow, he could raise up one eyebrow, and he would say, "What are you gonna do?" And so I would go on and we'd be having a great day. After I wasn't annoying, I was also embarrassing to Andy. Because when Andy played football in high school, my mom made my best friend and I matching cheerleading outfits. We thought we were pretty cool. And we would sit in the front row of the football game and we'd do all of our cheers, and every cheer ended with, "Yay, Andy!" as loud as we could. So we'd anxiously await at the end of every game for Andy to come out, and we'd say, "What'd you think? Did you hear our cheers, Andy?" And ever patient Andy would say, "Yeah, I heard you." That was easygoing Andy, part 2. But as we grew older and I was less annoying and less embarrassing, Andy actually began to think that I was fun. And so we became quite close. Our families would spend holidays together, and we just generally had a really loving group together. And that's probably one of the traits about Andy that I appreciate the most, the importance and the value he placed on family. Whenever he would go on a really great trip or vacation with Karen, when he came home, he would call me and tell me all about it, what they ate, what they saw, where they went, everything. But he'd end every story with, "You know me, we've come a long way from 25 Locust Avenue." And Andy, you're right. You've come a long way from 25 Locust Avenue. But during those 82 wonderful years of your life, you were always the most amazing, wonderful, all-around great guy. You were loving, you were caring, you were funny, you were witty, you were amazing. I'm gonna miss you, big guy. And I just want to thank you for being such a great big brother.
I really can't add anything more to what Mimi said, because Andy was always a wonderful brother and son, and he always looked out for his younger sister. As it comes to brothers, he was the best. He always made time for me. During baseball season, he would play catch. If I got a little cocky, he would throw a little harder. During basketball season, we'd shoot baskets. And if I made a couple of baskets, he'd be cheering me on. But as soon as I tried to do the same move again, he would stuff it right through my face. During football season, we would play football together, catch, and then he would get a little tighter in the spiral, and he was 6'4", so it was easy for me to hit the target. Me, I was a little bit shorter, so he had a little bit more difficult. But he always would put me in my place if I got a little cocky. Then all of a sudden, all this brother time stopped. At 14, Andy started his love for aviation. He would build every model airplane he could find. He started making his own airplanes out of balsa wood. Finally, doing remote airplanes all around the field that was in the back of our house in our backyard. It's kind of the drones of today. If you fast forward 35 years, Mr. Notar invited me to Carlsbad Airport. The Apache AH-64 was going to do its final flight certification for the Army. As the airplane was lifting off, I looked at Andy and saw a big smile on his face. I said, "Andy, why aren't you in the aircraft?" Andy looked at me and smiled in his big brother style. "Flying is for you pilots. You always want the brains on the ground." I love you, big brother, and you will be missed. And one of the things that Andy, we call him Andy, Big A, Big Brother, Hance. But Andy's favorites were son, father, dad, husband, grandpa, friend. And of course, he's thrilled that everybody called him Mr. Notar. God bless.
On January 7th, we lost a great man. I lost my father. Over the past 3 weeks, I've been thinking about this moment, this speech, but on reflection, I've been preparing for 54 years. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it, but I do have a crutch. I've got Callum as my wingman, if I can't. And I actually originally wanted to have some words from my friends, this close group of friends. Some are here today, Grant, Steve, Dan. I wanted them to write a paragraph about Dad, because he came to our big 50th birthday party in Austin, Texas. But they didn't listen to me. They didn't give me a paragraph. They gave me a very moving passage, which I'm going to delegate to Dan later on today. So to start, I just want to celebrate Karen. Karen has been an inspiration with her commitment, devotion, and sacrifice. And the last 5 months have been truly humbling. I could have not asked for more. The entire time we were together, over 30 years, you made him happy, you gave him life, and I'm so happy he shared his life with you. My father and I were very close. There was nothing unsaid or unshared. We had a deep father-son bond that was unconditional. And that feeling of unconditional love has taught me to love unconditionally. It has taught me to love Allison, Isabel, Cowan. He taught me this. He taught me many other things, and I wanted to share 2 of these. And both of these lessons were during the dad zone. And you know the dad zone, that's between the ages of 6, 7, 12, 13. Kyle and Amanda know exactly what I'm talking about. The dad zone, when your dad's the center of the universe. And it's similar to the ages of Ainsley and Gracie, and it's been really fun to watch him being the fun grandpa. So the first lesson he taught me is the gift of time. When Amanda and I were very little, we would go to the park. We would go to Boat Park. We'd do this every Sunday, and Boat Park was this big park with a steel playground with a central boat in the middle, so that's the name. It was called Boat Park. We'd play all day. After that, we'd get ice cream at Baskin Robbins. My favorite was mint chocolate chip. Amanda's was bubble gum. Then we'd walk on the cliffs, look over the ocean. The day lasted forever. He just gave us so much time. And then when I became an adult, I realized he was giving everyone time. Of course, to Amanda and I, but also to my mother. After a week of taking care of 2 crazy kids, he was giving her time to herself. And she was the giver of all givers. And we both, Amanda and I, have great parents that were great role models that we seek to replicate with our own families. So Dad was always there. He attended every baseball game, every graduation. He even coached soccer without knowing the rules. I caught him reading a book before our first practice. And the funny part of that story is I followed his footsteps because when Callum was 8, I volunteered to coach the cricket team. And to this day, I don't know the rules. So from that lesson, I wanted to return that gift. And this last December, we brought the whole family to see him. I wanted to give him the most precious thing in my life with his time with Allison, Callum, and Isabel. The second lesson is, it's a process. I'm looking at Kyle here because we've talked about this. And you all know what I mean if you know Andy, whether it's fixing the TV, if you're a genuine relationship, if it's studying for an exam, it's always a process, and I always hear these words, Ted, it's just a process, one step at a time. Back in the dad zone, I remember building a deck with him. I was probably about 8. And if he's honest, that was not helpful. But he would help me, and we would work through it, and I'd do the hammer and the nails, and he'd say, Ted, it's a process. First the foundation, then the frame, then the deck, step by step. And we ended the day sitting on the deck with chairs, sipping Henry Reinhardt's Private Reserve. If you remember that beer that's gone out of business. My first beer, the sip was all full, but it was the first time, first beer with the dad. It was very special. Even when things were tough in August, Kyle and I laughed at ourselves in the hallway and saying, you know, going through the physical therapy, and said, if there's anyone that knows a process, it's going to be Dad. So today is a celebration. It is a celebration of the life of Andy Logan, a loving husband, a devoted brother, a supportive colleague, a genius inventor, a fun grandpa, and a committed father. Andy was a man with many hats throughout his life, but underneath it all, he was one central soul that will live forever in all of us.
My name is Gail High, and I am Karen's neighbor. I've only known Karen and Andy for about 5 years, but we've grown really close through that time. They joined our Bible study, and I used to walk my dog all the time, and Andy would be out there with Yogi, and Yogi would be actually walking Andy most of the time. If you've ever seen Yogi, he's a huge dog, but he's just the best. And I had a little white dog, and Yogi wasn't really sure about my dog at first. He was like, really, he would, scare him. But after a while, they got to be really good friends, and so that was really sweet. And so Andy and I would be walking and talking. And one of the things that Andy, with his positive attitude, always so upbeat, he would say, or I would say to him, hey Andy, how's your day going? What's going on with you? And he always, probably 2 or 3 times he said this line to me, my day is great, every day is great. That's why it's called the present. And I've never forgotten that, because I've heard that saying before, but he really exemplified that. He was always very positive. He was always sharing his travels with Karen. He was always telling me about the places that we're going to and what a wonderful time they were having. And it was such a pleasure to know him and to have a neighbor close by that we could talk and walk together. And then Karen and Andy joined our Bible study group. And that was so special to us to have them in our group. Karen has asked me to read. Actually, I picked these verses, but I think they're very apropos. This is in the book of John, and it's chapter 14, verses 1 through 4. And Jesus spoke these words to his disciples to comfort them. And he said, do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, and trust also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. But I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go and I prepare a place for you, then I will come back and take you to be with me. You know the way to the place where I am going. So these verses were used by Jesus to comfort his disciples when he was leaving. And there's an additional verse in number 6, which Jesus says to his disciples, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. So we can all be assured that Andy is in God's house because he knew the way.
So I'm Kyle, Andy's stepson, and he was my stepdad, but he was my dad. Step doesn't belong there. My first dad passed away when I was 3, and it's been Andy taking that role for the last 30 years. Reflecting on everything in those 30 years and how he served as the dad role, it's just impossible to say enough up here what he meant. Excuse me, I'm trying. First memory is him courting my mom. And straight up, he was a nerd. He had high socks, high shorts, fourth grade glasses. And I was only in the 4th grade, but he had the respect to ask me permission to marry my mom. And I was so mature, I was like, yeah, dude, let's go, like, whatever. But I can safely say Andy is in the Hall of Fame for husbands. He could not have loved my mom more or treated her more better. And just reflecting on a few more memories, you know, I hate to rub it in with Larry, but sports was a big foundation of our life. And growing up in St. Louis, teaching me golf, which has been a huge part of my life, you know, he was so positive, just constantly, and golf's a frustrating game, you know. And he would say, you know, you're moving it, Kyle, you're moving it, all good. And he would hit his shot, it would suck. God damn it, Andy. So those memories are just seared. I've played more rounds of golf than I can count, and most of them have been with Andy. Huge Cardinals fans. You know, I remember the 2008 season. I got some folks from Boston here, you guys are spoiled, but the Cardinals sucked. We had season tickets growing up, and we got that 08 season where we got to go to the NFC Championship together, and that was a memory with Leo and my sister that we'll never ever forget. And there's other random things that I think of Andy. A little inside joke in elevators. The guy designed helicopters. He's a genius, but he couldn't figure out an elevator, so I also remember their Harley era, where they had Harleys. It was pretty surprising. And there was a moment I was driving, and they were on a ride, and they were coming back, and my mom was in front. She just looked badass. She was awesome, just attitude and everything. And right behind her was Andy with the just absolutely screamed Andy. So I just had to share those. So many amazing memories come to life. But I just really admired his discipline, his dedication to his family, and I'll continue to feed off his undying happiness. Thank you.
And I am Andy's stepdaughter as well, but I would like to say that that's not a term we usually use in our family. Andy was my dad, and since he passed, and even since he had a stroke, I've never said, oh, my stepdad. Hasn't come out of my mouth one time, because Andy made sure to make all of us feel like we were family, and there was just never a real differentiation. So I found the best way to express my feelings to Andy was I just wanted to write a letter to him, so that is what I've done, and I'm going to read my letter the best that I can. So, dear Andy, I just actually cannot believe we're here. When I allow myself to think about you and your place in my family, it literally takes my breath away. I just want you to know, I hope you know how much you meant to me. You came into my life in a time when Kyle, my mom, couldn't have been a more important time. I hope you know that every time I wrote you that card that told me how grateful I was for you, for how much you loved us and cared for our family, I hope you know I meant every word. I hope you know that I bragged about you all the time. I told people, strangers, how amazing you were. I would brag about your accomplishments, your humility, and your kindness. Andy, thank you for being great. Thank you for being the true patriarch of our family. Thank you for being a great husband, a great father, a great grandpa, and a great father-in-law. Thank you for carving every turkey, for being the best host and bartender, and for those countless years of the AAA cards. Thank you for always being my cheerleader and telling me how proud you were of me. I knew you meant it, and it meant the world to me. You showed us all what it was to be an amazing husband and to love unconditionally. Thank you, Andy, for loving my mom with all your heart. You always put whatever you wanted aside, and you'd always say, when I would ask you, Andy, what do you want to do? He would say, I don't know, what does your mom want to do? I'll never really know where he wanted to eat because he wanted what she wanted. I love that you're always up for anything, whether it was a dinner, a party, a football game, or a music festival. I can't believe it was just 8 months ago we went to this outdoor music festival and had a great time. Except for yard sales, you were definitely not up for yard sales, and I thank you for that too. Andy, when you had your stroke, you approached it with such positivity and grace. You truly took that bull by the horn and you were up for the fight. One day, I told you how you've always been made sure to take care of all of us, and now it was our time to happily take care of you, and I hope you know that I meant that. Thank you for letting me love on you, help you when you needed help, give you a manicure and a shave and a beard trim. I hope you know I needed to help you more than you needed the help. Thank you for always being a constant in my life. You truly showed me that to live life to the fullest right up to the end, do all the things, be all the things. I find great peace in knowing that you truly lived your best life right up until you couldn't. 8 months ago, my mother-in-law passed away, and I stood up and read a letter to her. You came up to me after and you said, Jen, that was a very nice letter and I'm very proud of you. And then you told me that you too had wrote your dad a letter when he had passed away, and you found it the best way to express your feelings. I actually cannot believe I'm now here reading a letter to you. And you have no idea how much your presence will be missed. There's a void in my heart that will never be filled. You won't just be missed at the big events, but all the small ones. I'll miss watching you and Leo off in the corner having your own conversations about topics that are way above my head. I hope that you just know how big of a role model you were in our marriage. I've been waiting for you to come down and send me a sign that it's okay, I'm waiting for you to come down with your hands up and your palms out like you do and say, hey Jen, it's okay. What are you gonna do? I feel like he's gonna say that to me. He would say, I fought the good fight and it was my time and I love you and I'm proud of you, and you and Leo take good care of your mom. Well, Andy, I love you too, and we will.
My name is Leo Odell. I'm Andy's son-in-law and married to Jennifer, and I was asked to write a memory I might have about Andy. And it's going to be really difficult for me. I don't have one memory. I have 25 years of memories. Andy was always present in my life from the day one. He was there on our first date, December 31st, 2000. Jennifer and I's first date, he was there. He was always there. I started dating Jennifer, and he said something about Baisley rolls to me I'll never forget. He said they're a lot of work, but they're worth it. And I agree with that. I agree wholeheartedly with that. We shared a love for football. Andy, as you know, was a giant Eagles fan, and we had watched every single Super Bowl together since 2000. This would be the first Super Bowl. Now, I'm a Chiefs fan, so I can't say fly, Eagles, fly right now, but maybe next season, I don't know. The Eagles will always have a special place in my heart. He loved golf, and I played a lot of golf with him. The game is so much more complicated than just a ball and a stick. He was always interested in new clubs and new putters, and new things, and none of those new putters ever seemed to work for him well. You see the picture, I took that picture, he was looking for his ball. I had told him that the ball's off the green, but he took his putter, I don't know. We talked about life, religion, politics. We had very deep conversations, and sometimes we didn't agree, but we always respected each other. We both loved Jesus, and he lived the greatest two commandments. Love the Lord God with all their heart and soul, and love your neighbor. That's it. It's so simple. When I married Jennifer, he told me that I'd be a great husband. Later, when I became a father, he showed what it meant to be a father to me. He was a great grandfather, always present, loving and committed to his family. He loved Karen. He looks at Karen the same way I look at Jennifer. He was always still waters in the storm for me. Peace and steady. Rest in peace, Andy.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mary. I was Andy's daughter-in-law, or am Andy's daughter-in-law. I'm married to Kyle, who just did an amazing speech, so I don't know how I'm gonna follow that up, but I had the privilege of knowing Andy for 6 years, which compared to a lot of other people isn't a whole lot of time. But from the very first time I met him, it was clear he had a heart full of warmth, kindness, and an endless capacity to make everyone feel welcome. He also had a depth of knowledge that was just truly remarkable. He was one of the smartest people I've ever met, and I completely admire that and hope that one day I could be the same. The other night, my husband and I were driving home from Karen's house, and he turned to me and he said that even though, he lost his father at a really young age, he was so incredibly lucky to have a man who stepped into that role seamlessly, and that's exactly what Andy did. He loved Kyle, he loved Karen, he loved Jen, he loved this whole family, and he loved me even in the short time that I knew him. Sorry, my nose. And that's just exactly who Andy was. He was a man who didn't just show up, but made sure to show love, guidance, and care in a way that really made a lasting impact. We're all better for having known him, and I will always cherish the time I had with him. Thank you.
I'm Elaine Logan, and I had the pleasure and good fortune of being married to Andy's older brother, Larry. Larry and Larry's son, Larry III, and I all refer to Andy as Hance. We use his middle name. So please bear with me as I use Hance throughout this. Larry was the oldest, then came Hance, then Rich and Mimi. And being closest in age, Larry and Hance were very close growing up. Of course, Larry was the big brother, so he took care of Hance. That was until Hance was called upon, Hance being the more practical one, to be the big brother to Larry. And I think that's happened from time to time. And I'm sure that Larry is here in spirit today. I can feel his presence. The day that Larry came home from the hospital with hospice, and that was in April of 2022, I contacted Larry's son, Hance, Rich, and Mimi, and I wanted to let them know the time was running out. They made arrangements amongst themselves as to who was going to come when, so as not to overwhelm Larry. Hance was the first one there. He arrived the next day. Larry had lost a lot of his cognitive abilities at that point in time, but he must have heard me speaking with the caregiver about somebody arriving that night. Because as evening approached, Larry had driven his wheelchair up to the window, and he sat, and he waited, and he watched, and he waited. And all of a sudden, he became very, very excited. He started bouncing up and down in this wheelchair. He was pointing, he was trying to speak, and I looked out the window, and Hance was walking up the sidewalk. It was a very emotional time for me and for Larry. We had dinner that night at the house, and that was the last time that, Hance was the last time that saw Larry. Hance was the last one to see Larry sitting up in his wheelchair. He helped me get Larry to bed that night, and Larry never got out of bed again after that. The next day, the hospice doctor arrived and met with Hance and myself and prepared us for what was going to happen. And it was comforting to know that one of the siblings was there at that particular time, helping me make whatever decisions were needed at that point in time. Hance has always been a great brother-in-law, a great Uncle Hance to Larry III, a great husband, great father, and everything has been said so far, and I'm not going to try to repeat anything. I couldn't possibly capture what all of you have. Karen, I know that this is going to be a very difficult period for you, but like me, you've got a wonderful support group of family and friends, which Delane, they've been there for you these past 6 months, and they will continue to be there. And you and Hance made some wonderful, wonderful memories together throughout your marriage. Those will always go with you. And I'll tell you, they will get more and more precious with every passing day, and no one can ever take them away from you. Love you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deb Beeman, and I just feel so honored and blessed that Karen reached out to me to participate in today's celebration. My husband Don and I have known Karen and Andy for over 15 years. We were part of a small group with 3 other precious couples, which I think they're all here today. We made some memories that are just unforgettable and spent quality time studying the Word and being in each other's lives and supporting each other. And we're so grateful for that. Those are memories that we will always have. Our God holds us continuously and very tightly in His grip. He's our security, and we need to cling to that very tightly, especially in times like this. Karen asked me to read a passage from Psalms, verses 23 through 26. And I think this verse is especially important today. Yet I am always with you. You hold me by my right hand. You guide me with your counsel. And afterward, you will take me into glory. Whom do I have in heaven but you? And the earth has nothing I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Love you, Karen.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren, also known as Lauren Doran. I'll respond to both. I want to extend my sincerest gratitude to everyone here today. Thank you for helping us celebrate the life of my grandpa Andy. Seeing so many faces gathered here, each of you touched in some way by his kindness, wisdom, and love, is a true testament to the incredible person he was. My grandpa was a remarkable man. He was accomplished in many ways. After all, he was Mr. Notar. But I bet you didn't know he was also a cameraman for a kids' cooking show, Cooking with Kids, starring none other than myself and my grandma. The show was filmed right in my grandparents' kitchen on Lobster Trap. We made everything from spaghetti to Christmas sugar cookies. I'll never forget how he'd give me a thumbs up from behind the camera whenever I put the cooking sheet in the oven by myself. After the show wrapped up, we sit around the table together enjoying my overly frosted Christmas tree sugar cookies. I will always cherish our shared love of aviation and traveling. Most recently, I learned that we also shared a deep love for an island off the coast of Massachusetts, Nantucket. One of my last memories with him was swapping stories about our time on island and the magic that fills the cobblestone streets. While today we feel the weight of his absence, I know he would want us to remember him not with sadness, but with joy. He lived a full life, one with love, laughter, and purpose. His legacy lives on, not just in the stories we tell about him, but in the way he shaped each of us. As we celebrate his life today, let us honor him by carrying forward his kindness, his laughter, and his love for family. Let's share stories, cherish the lessons he taught us, and live in the way that would make him proud. Thank you.
So I'm Trip. I'm Andy's grandson, and something I love most about my grandpa was our conversations. I always learn something every time I talk to him, and he could take like the most mundane concept, like just boring, right? And it wasn't boring anymore, you know. And but our conversations were anything but mundane. We always talked about, like business, politics, the world around us, as one does. And but the main thing we talked about was like his life as an engineer. He always had some really cool stories, and he could take the most complex concepts like radar signatures on the shape of the plane at this angle and this the sky, and just make it so simple that the average person could understand it. And if that doesn't show that this was a smart guy, I don't know what does. Every single time I talk to him, I learned something, I gained something of importance, and I learned more about the world. But most of his work as an engineer, he couldn't talk about. And that's like what I wanted to know the most, right? Because that's what the public can't know is what you want to know. So after years of asking this guy to tell me anything about anything, he finally sat me down, he looked me dead in the eye, and he said, "Stop asking me about it." Some of you guys may think, our grandpa's gone, right? But he's not. He lives with us today, His lessons he learned and he passed to us, we still have when we do our everyday things like going to the grocery store, putting gas in the car, looking at an airplane flying in the sky. That's with us forever. That's all I got for you.
Good job. I am Erin Butler. I am Uncle Andy's niece and the flower girl for his and Aunt Karen's wedding. Best dress ever. I was asked today to read a poem. He is Gone by David Perkins. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be full for the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what he would want. Smile, open your eyes, love, and go on.
Hello, I'm Joe Butler. I'm married to Andy's no longer annoying little sister. Andy treated me like his brother Rich and his brother Larry as not just a brother-in-law, but as a brother. And of course, they had no choice because not long after I married their sister, I became their mother's favorite son. I'm going to read a poem this afternoon by John O'Donoghue. He's an Irish author, and the title of the poem is On the Death of the Beloved. Though we need to weep your loss, you dwell in that safe place in our hearts where no storm or night or pain can reach you. Your love was like the dawn, brightening over our lives, awakening beneath the dark a further adventure of color. The sound of your voice found for us a new music that brightened everything. Whatever you unfolded in your gaze quickened in the joy of its being. You placed smiles like flowers on the altar of the heart. Your mind always sparkled with wonder at things. Though your days here were brief, your spirit was live, awake, complete. We look towards each other no longer from the old distance of our names. Now you dwell inside the rhythm of breath, as close to us as we are to ourselves. Though we cannot see you with outward eyes, we know our soul's gaze is upon your face, smiling back at us from within everything to which we bring our best refinement. Let us not look for you only in memory, where we would grow lonely without you. You would want us to find you in presence, beside us when beauty brightens, when kindness glows, and music echoes eternal tones. When orchids brighten the earth, darkest winter has turned to spring. May this dark grief flower with hope in every heart that loves you. May you continue to inspire us to enter each day with a generous heart, to serve the call of courage and love until we see your beautiful face again, in that land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind, and we will never lose you again. Thank you.
I'm Dan Walkler. As I think you heard, the background here is that we went to South by Southwest in Austin to celebrate Ted's 50th birthday. Andy joined us buffoons down there. We certainly didn't act like 50-year-olds, but Ted asked us all to share some thoughts about his dad, and then our good friends, so Steve Beagley and Grant Baker and a bunch of us shared some thoughts, and then our friend Alex Cobb wrote this up. So, Andy the Goat Logan. The best part of having Andy at each of Ted's big birthday events, his 40th in Phoenix and then his 50th in Austin, was he went from being a patriarchal former engineer to simply being one of the guys. Andy joining us on our trips was a blessing because some of the group tended to be a little exuberant, Ted, despite us all being grown men. Having Andy there certainly kept us on the rails more often than not. All of us being older grown men brought these All of us being grown men also brought to these trips the shared experience of marriage, children, mortgages, etc. Our similar life paths equalized our group, and we spent much of our time with Andy engaged in conversations we all found mutually beneficial and intimately relatable. These moments are the ones that stand out most. Andy's great knowledge and enthusiasm for music, food, travel was infectious, and he had an authenticity, curiosity about everything. Most important, Andy reinforced for us the life lesson that the smartest people in the room aren't the ones telling you what they know. The smartest people are the ones who are always the most curious and always seeing what they can learn from you. For Ted's older high school friends, the connection was clearly more profound. Many came to understand that they were close friends with Andy in addition to Ted. They felt like a member of the Logan family. Meals at the Logan table fostered communion, peace, and acceptance. Andy had a way of giving you his 100% every moment. He would listen from his heart and reward you with a nugget of wisdom. We loved Andy and his irrepressible smile, his quick and hilarious wit, and the reverberations of his joyous laugh. Naturally, these trips together also brought out nicknames for everybody. There were cool ones like Kodiak or Mustang, and not so cool ones like Ted's name Nitro, which he gave him to himself. But obviously, we needed to find one for Andy. It took all of 5 seconds to bestow upon him the GOAT, AKA the greatest of all time. We will dearly miss Andy at Ted's 60th birthday, but we know he will be there in spirit, and he will always be there for us. Here's to Andy.
Raul Sanchez was one of his golf buddies. And not only was he a good friend, a golf buddy, but a person that really appreciated a good beer. One of the last images I got of Andy is toasting cheers to a Yingling. So, Andy, on your last journey, don't stay thirsty, my friend. Have a Yingling.
I don't have a speech prepared for Andy, but I'm sure you guys all have your own great memories with him. And he was a very knowledgeable person, which is what I remembered about him the most. But I think it's important to know that Andy was an out-of-the-box thinker. He really applied that to his work, and with the no-tar, thinking out of the box and inventing things. And I think, to put it simply, Andy thought outside the box, applied it to his work, made a lot of money, married a beautiful woman, had children, stepped up as a father, and then pursued his family for the rest of his life. And I think we could all learn something from that.